Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Gymkata from 1985. I've always known Gymkata as kind of an infamous cult movie, and I hadn't seen it before I made this review. I had heard of it from film critic Matt Singer. I had also heard the reference in Lego Batman, and it played on Turner Classic Movies TCM Underground, so I thought, okay, well, now is clearly the time. And it's known for being a film about a special kind of martial arts that combines the soul of gymnastics and the kill of karate, or so the poster says, which is like, okay, this is a gymnastics karate thing, which, you know, I always thought if I was near someone who was doing gymnastics, like, way too close, they could kick me in the face and that would hurt. So I somewhat get that, although it seems fairly laughable and stupid and silly. And, you know, that's kind of the log line I've always understood about Gymkata. Like, it is the martial arts gymnastics movie. And that's why it's so silly, and that's why people love it. Oh no, there's a lot more to Gymkata. Gymkata is like the bad movie that keeps giving. It is ridiculous how both entertaining this movie actually is, and how it has so many different ridiculous cult movie, B-movie ideas within it. You're kind of surprised they didn't make like 3 B movies instead of just cramming it all into this one, but not in like a really bad movie way, in a way that you're like, holy shit, how did this happen? Most of Gymkata is like bearing witness to whose idea was this initially, and how did it get to this? Because the thing I told you, the log line, never mentioned in the movie. Sure, the star of this, who is Kurt Thomas, who is a big gymnastics star, who I guess we had one of those. Although I'm very unclear if he went to the Olympics or not. I don't really know. But anyway, he was a big gymnastics star. So they were like, let's put him in an action movie. Already that's weird, but okay. And so he's there in this action movie. Let's have him do martial arts. And that's also weird, but, you know, whatever. And then they go, okay, but also let's have this directed by the guy who directed Enter the Dragon and Black Belt Jones and The Big Brawl, like seriously, and something called China O'Brien, Game of Death. And this guy decided to make this movie. And so that's already like, what the hell? And he's a gymnast who the government trains. The government, I mean, it's just a guy who says he's the government, but I'm pretty sure he is. They train him for this thing called the game. And it's in this other country, a fictional country, although I haven't been everywhere in the world, so maybe not. But Parmistan, it's Parm and then Istan. So I think that's how you say it. I forget how they said it in the movie. But it's called Parmistan. They need to go there to set up a Star Wars installation. Now, before you go, I love that movie. No, the Ronald Reagan missile defense system for you kids. It was basically a way so they'd know if someone was launching a nuclear missile. So he has to play this game, which involves like ropes and crazy challenges and all this stuff. And he has to get through that. And once he gets through that, they can have one request that they always have to honor, which I guess would be do this Star Wars installation. And the government, instead of like taking over a country that, by the way, looks like medieval, but they've decided this is the more finessed way to do it, they send this Kurt Thomas guy in to defeat the game and do this. And that's already weird. You're like, okay, that's like 2 crazy ideas for a cult movie. Clearly Robert Close, you know, it sounds like Enter the Dragon. It sounds like a martial arts movie. Fine, okay. Then, towards the end of it, he goes to this place where all the criminally insane live in this weird town. And he has to go in and get through the town or beat everyone up or something. And then the movie becomes a surreal acid movie, basically. Like a weird trippy thing that makes no sense and has weird imagery. And the movie just completely changes for a section and then becomes the game again. That is seriously Gymkata, and I'm not actually ruining anything because it is beyond anything. I mean, the one good thing, and Red Letter Media said this, but I agree with it while I was watching it, is it cuts out like the bad movie thing where they over-explain like, oh, you're this gymnast and we want to do this thing and all this stuff, and that's like 20 minutes and you're like asleep. There's like barely any of that, mainly training montage. There's an opening that makes gymnastics look like in like a really dark arena with like spotlights and like all this stuff that gymnastics has never looked like. Like the opening's weird. It's always like shot and edited in such a strange rhythm. It's almost just more like being amazed at what you're bear witness to with Gymkata, because you're just like, holy shit, like, what is this? Like, it's just so weird, but there's an odd, strange physicality to it, but you're also like, this is fucking dumb, because they keep finding ways for him to have things to do gymnastics off of in the natural world. And in one part, he just finds like a bar, which you imagine, okay, fine, maybe there's a sewer thing, or someone hangs their clothes really high, or something. Like, there's some reason the bar is that high, and he swings around and kicks people. Although they could just avoid that alleyway, but they don't seem to do that, so whatever. And his hands are chalked perfectly for that part too, which they don't explain. But I feel like this movie's so ridiculous, they're like, dude, nobody fucking cares, just like chalk your hands. This is Gymkata. We've moved away from sensibility and reality a long, like 20 minutes ago. If anyone's this far into Gymkata, they've given up thinking this is like Cassavetes. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some didn't, I don't know. But then later he has a pommel horse in the crazy people town. This thing that's supposed to be like a well clearly has things that look like is it a pommel horse, or the thing they do the spinny things on? The whole time I was watching it, I was like, so this naturally occurs? I mean, I don't know wells that well. I never thought that would be a thing. It was just weird. And then of course again the bad guys just kind of walk towards him kicking. It's just interesting, the idea that they thought Kurt Thomas, who was kind of a star, could be the star of a movie. That obviously happens with popular athletes, from everybody from Babe Ruth to eventually, you know, LeBron James more recently, and, you know, to kind of make money off of their popularity. But apparently this guy was popular like 5 years before. I mean, it takes a while to make a movie. It took a little longer, I guess, in the 80s, but it didn't take this long, I don't think. It's very weird, and this was made by MGM, a major studio, and the fact that the guy who made Enter the Dragon thought, let's make the gymnastics martial arts movie, is just mind-boggling, really. But that's kind of part of the fun of Gymkata. It is not really a good movie, but it's so enjoyable that I think it brings into mind what cult movies usually are, is holy shit, this exists, and it's actually sort of an interesting thing to watch. Gymkata at the beginning rides the line on this is bad to what is this? And I mean, Gymkata is the whole idea that I think Alamo Drafthouse plays films like Roar and so forth that have this idea of what the fuck is this? And Gymkata does that for a really long time, like way longer than any movie I've seen it, because it really hooks you, because there's constantly weird things. There's guys in black hoods. There's a whole thing where like there's the princess of the king, and the princess looks nothing like her father. Maybe she's adopted, I don't know, but that's bizarre. There's like another guy who's like taking over. There's ideas in this film that are introduced and never brought back that I think is weird. It's actually based on a book called The Terrible Game by Dan Tyler Moore. But apparently the most terrible game, or the terrible game, sorry, not the most terrible game, it's just a terrible game. The Terrible Game was apparently originally developed to be a film with Rock Hudson. I'm curious if The Terrible Game involved the gymnastics element of it, if Rock Hudson was going to do that, because that's interesting to me. But I get the impression that part of it Robert Close brought in, so maybe like the craziness. I'm slightly curious to read The Terrible Game, and that's kind of what makes this film so interesting, is because the crazy people town, the game itself with all these like holding onto ropes over cliffs, doing all these weird obstacle courses, like these could be one stupid movie in itself, but the fact that they combine so many is just ridiculous. And that this is done by someone who's made several notable martial arts films, like not just like, because everyone says Enter the Dragon, but like he's made The Big Brawl, Game of Death, Black Belt Jones is Fine, or whatever, you know, like he's made some pretty big ones. Then he makes Gymkata, and it's like, what? I just find this film so ridiculous, and that's what I love about Gymkata, and I think that's what most people love about it. I would see people say, oh, because it's unintentionally hilarious, and like, sure, it is that, but it's also that, like, look at the artifact that is this thing. It's so 80s, but it also goes into so many weird directions that by the end you're like, how did this happen? How did Gymkata, like, just the log line is enough, like, who thought that was a good idea? And by the end you're like, there are too many things to think that about in this movie. It starts with one thing and it just gives you a lot of different things. You're like, who came up with all this? It is mind-boggling how crazy it is, and it doesn't even end properly. It's just wow. I bear witness to something, and that something was Gymkata. Oh, by the way, the star Kurt Thomas is not good. He is not a good star. He's supposed to be charming, but he often comes off like a dick. When he's in action stuff, then I'm kind of sort of okay with it, I guess. But then other times I'm like, why was he in, like, he doesn't really have charm. He's not really masculine enough for this. I mean, a lot of this you could say we're bringing up ideas of masculinity and how we feel about masculinity and how masculinity should be portrayed in a martial arts film. But you could also say that, like, most of this doesn't work and is very silly and stupid. That would not be the proper conversation to have with Gymkata, just because it is so silly. If it wasn't so silly, we could talk about, hey, you know, why do we have certain ideas of masculinity with martial arts films? But you could also say, like, in most martial arts films, the guys are coming towards you and kicking. They're not in a stationary location spinning around and they go, well, I should defeat him, so I'm just gonna walk towards him. I think it shows sometimes what a trained martial arts director can do for its star when the star isn't, you know, Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan or something, and how they can make that to work for them. They clearly got a studio director who knew his shit and knew how to do this kind of thing, but unfortunately they gave him one of the most ridiculous things ever. It is such a ridiculous movie, but I think the one thing I'd recommend about this, other than most bad movies, which just like end up getting worse and worse and having ideas that you're like, ugh, that's boring, and it kind of like ruins your enthusiasm, Gymkata like keeps you fairly entertained throughout. It is actually a very good B cult movie. It is a cult movie where you're like, what the fuck is this? How did this happen? And it's just really, really good at being Gymkata. The way it's shot has like a weird chemistry about it. Like, it's not good, but I feel like it's trying to do something, and even though it fails, I just love watching it. It is an impressively odd cult find of a film, and it's a cult movie that I know it's like cult is kind of growing as years go on, and I'm sure after the Lego Batman thing, more and more people are going to talk about Gymkata, and I think that is really, really great because it is like so primed to be an amazing cult film. They don't make cult films like this just because I don't think they rarely have made cult films like this. This is just a weird accidental mistake that I think all involved probably washed their hands of and went, let's just back away, because I think we went maybe too far. Kind of like both the scene of a murder and the scene of great art. Between those is Gymkata and what you are to bear witness to. I think it is just an amazing idea to combine both gymnastics, martial arts, a crazy game thing, and a madness kingdom with crazy people with odd visuals. Just makes for a hell of an entertaining cult film. And if you're into cult cinema and watching bad movies, you will not be disappointed by Gymkata, but you might also be surprised on how much you actually like it, which I think is the sign of a truly great cult movie. Gymkata is ready to kick you in the face if you just sort of walk towards it and don't run away from it, I guess. So if you have seen Gymkata and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.